Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Just so you know, we do have a Instagram now, so you can keep posted on what we are doing and what we are reading of the week or the month. Untangle Your Anxiety, Chapter 9, our handpicked tips and hints. Scale your anxiety. We can't begin to tell you how helpful it is to scale your anxiety. Scaling your anxiety between a score of 1 to 10 is helpful for many reasons. It helps you to see anxiety as something that constantly changes and fluctuates. You can see small reductions and increases in anxiety in relation to behaviors and triggers. It helps you to observe anxiety and expect the symptoms before they occur. It's easier to measure progress. Progress in overcoming anxiety is often measured in steps or stages. By scaling your anxiety, we can challenge any self-doubt or critical thoughts by drawing upon your anxiety in certain situations and using them as factual evidence for progress. For example, oh my god, I'm so anxious when I go to the grocery store, could be cognitively reframed with the aid of scaling our anxiety to, I'm in the grocery store and my anxiety is a score of 5 instead of the usual 9 or 10. I'm getting better, and willful tolerance. Another example could be, I'm at a 6 in the morning when I wake up. I used to be a 9, so I've done something right so far. When practicing exposure, scaling can be really helpful because you can notice the numbers start to fall when you have been with the triggering situations long enough. A good exposure session is when you stay with the fear without white knuckling or relying on reassurance, and you begin to notice that your anxiety levels are coming down. This is a core tenet of recovery. The next time anxiety suggests to you, what if this lasts forever, or what if this is now you forever, then simply refer to your anxiety scores. Well, actually, anxiety, I was at a 3 yesterday when I was tidying up. So it can't possibly mean this is me forever. This is just adrenaline, and I'm working on my fear for you. If you lived with anxiety for a while, you will be familiar with the compulsion of checking ourselves and scanning our body for the signs of anxiety. We do this because we fear anxiety and the discomfort that it produces. We can also monitor for the first sign of disaster happening that is external to us. Perhaps one or more of these statements will resonate with you. Is my anxiety here yet? Is this the first sign of a panic attack? Is this strange symptom something sinister? I'll keep an eye on it. Are they angry at me? I'll monitor just in case. If I keep this worry in mind, I'll be prepared for when it does happen. Surely, if I ruminate enough on this problem, then I can find the solution. These thoughts often turn into actions, or more accurately referred to as compulsions. It is the compulsion to check the habit that keeps the amygdala on alert. Please remember that the more we check and monitor ourselves for anxiety, the longer it wants to stick around. It is impossible to stop checking and monitoring straight away, but less checking means less anxiety. With less checking and monitoring comes less anxiety. Read in the Spider-Man voice. With this in mind, Josh devised a game into play, which also factors in cognitive reframing. The game is simple. Every time you catch yourself checking on your anxiety or monitoring or ruminating, count the amount of minutes, hours, or seconds you have just spent not doing that. Instead of getting frustrated and disciplining yourself for checking, we want to immediately reframe this into a positive. Then give yourself some points. Okay, I've caught myself checking for signs of illness again. However, I went 4 minutes without doing this. That's 4 points to me. This game can be very, very powerful, and it's also a very good way to literally rewire the brain when it comes to associations with anxious behaviors. It also applies when we have been feeling calm for a long time, then suddenly get caught off guard by adrenaline dump. Rather than assuming the anxiety is back for good and is ready to plague you until the end of time, here's a chance to say, oh wow, I have been weeks without thinking about how I feel. I feel uncomfortable now. But I need to remind myself of this. This ties into walking to yourself with kindness and compassion, like we mentioned earlier in the book. How you score the points, record them, and reward yourself is up to you. You can pop them in a journal, an app on your phone, vocally with someone else, or just mentally store them as a rough guide. When you reach a certain total of points, promise yourself a treat, such as an evening off or buying yourself something nice. Engage and present. Have you ever walked past a school playground and noticed most kids are running around, having fun, and importantly, are engaged in the present? You don't see them sitting in the corner, deeply lost in thought about their anxiety disorders or trying to fix themselves. Obviously, there are some children who do struggle emotionally, but in general, when you walk past the school playground, it is a vibrant, energetic place with laughter, playful screams, and optimistic energy. Anxiety disorders convince you that it is not okay to stay in the present moment. Think about it. Every what if is based in the future, or when we are dwelling on something in the past, these what ifs are usually scary in nature. Then when you couple them with uncomfortable sensations and emotions, they suddenly have all your attention. In contrast, every person who isn't anxious will spend a lot of their day with thoughts and attention in the present. What this looks like is different for each individual. Non-anxious me would just walk around daydreaming and playing with my imagination about cool stuff. I'd also just be enjoying stuff in front of me. This was me being in my present, not engaging with every persuasive, scary thought and sensation that my threat response was trying to signal. Josh. Interestingly, focusing on the present is the central tenet of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a branch of meditation with the sole intention of bringing us into the present. It is often suggested as a panacea for mental health conditions, which it isn't. But it is a very useful practice to get involved with, as it helps us with our aim of keeping our thoughts and attention in the present. When our thoughts are in the present, the mind and body return to a state of balance quicker than when we try to rush it. Think about it. If you have ever been busy or distracted, when you would have probably noticed that the anxiety is less than when it has our whole attention. Unfortunately, people misuse mindfulness as a technique or eradicate anxiety, which often does not work. Particularly for people struggling with the fear of fear, I've tried mindfulness and it didn't work. We recommend using mindfulness as a preemptive measure when you're calmer. This will help us prepare to use it for when we are anxious and when we are practicing willful tolerance. If you wait until you're panicking to try and use mindfulness, you'll realize it's very difficult to focus on anything else but a frantically fast mind. In summary, start practicing being in the present, whether it's through the discipline of mindfulness or just practicing engaging with things in your life that are in front of you. This will be different for each individual. We're back to Josh's golden rule. Again, do what non-anxious you would do and commit to it. Furthermore, when combined with our point-scoring game of counting the times we are not monitoring and checking, keeping our focus on things in the present is a real winner. Less doing, more being, the body fixes itself. If anxiety and panic cannot hurt us, then rationally, why would we need to do something about it if it arose? Why would we need to fix or correct something? One of the biggest mistakes of thinking we need to do something when we are anxious, if you are a person who does this, consider if anything that you have done has worked yet. We suggest actually doing nothing. This outrageously means practicing doing nothing and seeing what happens. No rushing to Dr. Google or asking for reassurance or rushing to the supplements or running to a safe space. Do nothing. There's method to our madness because the role of the amygdala. If the amygdala is signaling danger and sounding the alarm, it expects us to act, either via fight or flight. What do you think we are showing the amygdala when we choose to do neither of these? How would you think the amygdala responds when we haven't really changed what we are doing for a while? Anxious recovery is more about being than doing. This comes with practice. The alarm analogy. A good tip we like to share with people we work with is to draw upon the metaphor of a false alarm. Imagine you are sat at home and your fire alarm starts sounding. What do? Well, hopefully you would be startled into action. You would quickly check to see if there was a fire, perhaps smell for smoke, or shout to loved ones, then get the hell out of the house and wait for the fire to brigade. You may even be able to extinguish the source of a small fire yourself. For instance, if you realize that you had left the oven on, or if your hairdryer overheats, this is the whole function of the fire alarm, to warn you that there could be a potential danger. The alarm triggers the sounds in the same whether there is a whiff of smoke or if it's a building burning down. The amygdala uses adrenaline and cortisol to set off the body's alarm system, and we invite you to conceptualize your anxious threat response like this. The alarm system, when highly stressed, can go off at any whiff of danger or stress. However, like an alarm at home, there most likely isn't a fire, but it triggers just in case there's one. Importantly, if our fire alarm goes off at home, we most likely do not behave like there is a fire initially, but we may check out of intrigue anyways. People with an anxiety disorder, however, react to their own alarm system as if there is a fire every time it sounds. Imagine you're in the office building doing some work when the building safety officer visits and announces that he will be testing the fire alarm within the next hour. He claims you're not required to do anything as it's just a test to see if it is working. He visits every month and it's not a big deal, so you continue with your emails and begin writing quite a detailed paragraph when suddenly you're startled by the sound of a loud screeching siren. Then the sound makes you jump, and for a brief second you feel like you're in danger. Then at that moment you recall that this is a fire alarm test. This is a false alarm. And you remind yourself that you do not need to do anything. Despite the loud siren, you are able to continue with your emails, with the siren in the background. After all, you're used to this by now. This is exactly how we should perceive anxiety and adrenaline rushes. People who react to false alarms in their body will immediately drop what they are doing and be called into action. They stop doing their emails and run outside just in case there is fire, even though they have been foretold there will be a false alarm. This is what people who fear and misinterpret anxiety do. Every time they get an alarm via the amygdala signaling the activation of fight or flight, they immediately assume it is real and the imminent peril is around the corner, following on from the last section. Let's practice not reacting to false alarms. Parasympathetic activities. Instead of relying on reacting to anxiety when it arises, why don't we work on preventative measures in our day-to-day lives? As mentioned in the anxiety attacks chapter, we really believe in working on the balance of our involuntary nervous system. Anxious people have an overstimulated sympathetic nervous system, so we must work on bringing balance by engaging our parasympathetic nervous system. This includes an effort to factor emotionally nourishing activities into our lives. This includes having fun, giving yourself permission to enjoy something for you and also as a means of combat anxiety. Meditation can work wonders but isn't for everyone. Deep breathing practice. Laughing. Having a laugh either on your own or laughing with friends and family is excellent for this. Or watching comedy or something. Running a hot bath. Getting a massage. Mild exercise, being within nature, eating wholesome and delicious food, relaxation. This includes just taking a break, lying down, perhaps with a book or TV. Gaming, playing video games that are not intense and stressful. Try to avoid first-person shooters and horror games. Yoga and Tai Chi. It is important to make sure you find out what works for you and to not fall into a trap of doing what you should be doing. Don't try to replicate other people if it is not working for you. Personally, we don't practice much yoga, but we know it helps many people we know. Making something else the center of your life. When we've had anxiety for so long, it can become the center of our lives. Every day we wake up trying to fix it. We try to find the solution, the answer. We imagine that if we dig deep, go inwards, and explore the different layers within inception, that maybe we can find the solution. Each and every day, we are searching for answers because with every sunrise, we open our eyes and immediately feel the weight of our anxiety. It can fully consume us until everything we do revolves around managing our worries. The idea that we think our way out of it, keep searching and reminiscing until we somehow find our answer is a surefire path to remaining in this anxious cycle. This only subscribes to a romanticized view of anxiety. It's something you can fix inside your head. With a good therapist, you can explore and conceptualize your anxiety, but you, on your own, going around and around in thought loops, isn't going to achieve anything. Of course, if we've been anxious for a long time, we might not know what a non-anxious life looks like anymore. It becomes an unhelpful mental habit, and, like in all unhelpful habits, they are notoriously tough to break. This is why there are tools and techniques to help you, and the one we are going to discuss here is all about making something else the center of your life. How do you do that? We have to plan it out. You must ask yourself what you would be doing if you weren't anxious. What exactly does a non-anxious week look like? Josh has been working through this technique with his client in his practice and helping them outline a weekly schedule. Let's compare an anxious day to a non-anxious day. On an anxious day, this person might wake up, open their eyes, and think about how they feel. Immediately, they worry. This feeling of worrying means that they can't eat breakfast because now they feel nauseous or find themselves too distracted with concern, so they do what we all do and look for Google for advice and reassurance. Perhaps they read through some books and help find some answers or flick through their social media for guidance for stories they can relate to. They try to keep themselves busy in a bid to avoid their anxiety. Maybe they do something like cooking or cleaning, but at the end of the day, they are exhausted. All of the adrenaline and worry has drained them of their energy, and they go to bed feeling fatigued and stressed. Now, assuming everything else remains the same, what might they do if they weren't anxious? Our client might be inclined to say, well, I'd likely wake up, go to eat breakfast, but if I'm too anxious, I won't be able to eat. The answer here is to do it anyway. With each task in our day-to-day lives that might be interrupted or hindered by the presence of anxiety, we must do them anyway because that is what we want to train the brain to do. If you can only take 2 bites of that breakfast, then great. Who cares? You've done it. You're already doing something different from what you were before. You're already taking the steps to turn off that threat response. Plan out what a normal week looks like for you and commit to it. The reason this technique is so great is because it rewires the brain. Anxiety thrives in habit. So you can think about how every day is Groundhog Day when we live with anxiety at the core of everything we do and every decision we make. We wake up, do the anxious bit, and we go to sleep. But alas, the anxiety hasn't gone away. We haven't found the answer. We haven't found the solution. We have simply lived another day exactly the same as the day before and the day before that. Something has to change. Anxiety goes away when you ask it to go away, and when you repeat it for long enough, the new habit becomes the main habit, and the old habits fades away. In the same way that a person might struggle to give up an addiction like smoking, we become addicted to the habit. We become addicted to the search for relief. Let's change that by interrupting the thought loop. And how do we interrupt the thought loop? We plan our days and commit to them as if we are living a non-anxious life. In conversation. Josh, for me, what I really found useful was to not try and activate the parasympathetic nervous system as a reaction to when I'm already anxious or when I'm already panicking. Obviously, do it if you're stressed and things, but sometimes when we've been ignoring stress for a long time and then suddenly we find ourselves panicking, that then isn't the time to go and practice meditation. This isn't the time to go and run an ice bath because it's arguably too late. So do it after the panic has finished. Or for me, that was massive. It was preventative rather than reactionary. I just think, so many people disregard helpful things like meditation because of things like, oh yeah, I tried meditation. Well, yeah, you tried it when you were panicking as a remedy to calm yourself down. You tried it as a reaction. But to calm you tried it when you were panicking as a remedy to calm yourself down. You tried it as a reaction, but actually that's really helpful if you meditate when calm. Put it as a part of your routine. Dean, I like that, Josh, and I think the perfect way of saying that is that people are trying to use this as a tool. I probably fell into this category as well when I was first looking at tools to help overcome anxiety. Some people use meditation or mindfulness in peak of panic and try to use it as a crutch, don't they? Josh, yes. Dean, whereas, like you say, it's good to implement as a preventative measure. So the things that helped for me was mindfulness, just being present. So what you said about labeling the anxiety is actually something that arises as a skill from practicing mindfulness. So when I was feeling anxious, I'd be mindful that I was feeling anxious, and I knew what it was. Another helpful tool for me was correct breathing. So I don't know if you know, Josh, but over 70% of us breathe incorrectly. So we don't breathe using what is called belly breathing. We don't breathe through the belly, and we take shorter breaths, like you with meditation. Practicing this when I was not panicking was helpful. But I know a lot of people can struggle if they try to do it as a reaction to acute panic rather than practicing when we are calm. That's a really good one. Another trick that really helped me was scaling. I've mentioned it before, but scaling anxiety and working with other people to communicate my anxiety score. So rather than constantly repeating myself to my friends, loved ones, or partner, oh, I'm anxious, I'd say, I'm a 6. Oh, okay, so you're fairly anxious. Yeah. Oh, I'm a 9. Oh, you really must be panicking. I'm a 2. Oh, brilliant, because this morning you were 9. And I think that's really important. Yeah, Dean. Yeah, and that's obviously a really good CBT technique that's tried and tested, isn't it? This scaling of the anxiety response so the clients can see the anxiety scale. It isn't a yes or no, it isn't an on or an off switch, it's a sliding scale. And like you say, being aware of where you are on the scale can really be useful and really helpful with loved ones or family members or work colleagues. And just touching on what you said earlier, even when I first started dealing with anxiety and panic, what I would do was just keep it all in my mind. So I'd be in the office or be out with my friends, and I would just keep it all to myself and almost have this internal battle with myself. And what I found useful was that I turn around to my friend and I would say, listen, just letting you know, I feel a bit anxious at the moment. And they say, do you know what? Ah, so do I. And you wouldn't believe it, would you? That people around you are having their own internal battles. So that's why I think it is really important that we're all there to help each other and not be scared of telling people that you're feeling anxious. You can get this from journaling as well. Getting thoughts from your mind and onto a piece of paper. You're moving it away from the irrational thoughts process in your mind, aren't you? Josh, absolutely. I think for me one of the most important things is compassion. You must try and be nice to yourself and try and catch yourself being self-critical, because no one has ever overcome anxiety from being extremely self-critical. You cannot criticize yourself out of an anxiety disorder, and that has to be remembered. Talk to yourself like you talk to a loved one or to a good friend, and that's the way you can encourage yourself out of it. I think that's really important. Dean, yes. When you initially get clients coming to you, or you might have been asked on your Instagram platform, but do you get frequently asked questions like, how do I get rid of anxiety? How do I get rid of overthinking? How do I stop irrational thoughts? So I think highlighting the psychoeducation around that, it's not the thought, it's your reaction to it and your behavior in response to the thoughts, that is really important.